The white two-story house standing in a residential neighborhood in Richmond, Virginia, was as beautiful as if it had stepped out of a magazine. However, behind the perfectly manicured lawn and colorful flower beds lay a deep sadness. Rachel Harrison stood at the kitchen window looking outside, holding her coffee cup in both hands. Her face still bore the shadow of grief from losing her husband Michael in a car accident 3 years ago. Michael had worked as an architect and was struck by a drunk driver on his way home from work one evening. From that day, Rachel's world had completely changed. "Good morning, Mom." 6-year-old Emma came running down the stairs and hugged her mother's waist. The little girl with golden hair in a ponytail bore a strong resemblance to her late father. Especially those sparkling blue eyes, they were exactly like Michael's. "Good morning. It's Saturday today. What would you like to do?" Rachel smiled while gently stroking her daughter's hair. Since losing Michael, Emma was the only one who could keep her positive. For her daughter's sake, she couldn't remain lost in grief forever. The doorbell rang. Rachel looked up at the clock. 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning, too early for visitors. "It's Grandma," Emma said, peering out the window. Rachel's expression clouded slightly. Margaret Harrison, Michael's mother. Since losing her son, she had begun showering her granddaughter Emma with an almost obsessive amount of affection. When Rachel opened the door, there stood Margaret, perfectly dressed as always. Her gray hair was styled at the salon, and she wore an elegant tweed suit. However, her sharp gaze held a subtle hostility toward Rachel. "Good morning, Rachel. Is Emma here?" "Good morning, Margaret. Emma is having breakfast. Please come in." Rachel responded politely, but complex feelings swirled in her heart. Since her son's death, Margaret visited 3 times a week without fail. While she claimed to be visiting her granddaughter, she often interfered with Rachel's parenting decisions and would tell endless stories about memories with Michael. "Grandma." When Emma spotted her grandmother, she put down her cereal and ran over. Margaret's face immediately lit up. "Emma, dear, I couldn't sleep because I wanted to see you. Shall we go to the park together today?" "Really?" "Yay." Rachel forced a bitter smile. Margaret always gave Emma special treatment, acting as if she were her own daughter. Whenever Rachel made plans, Margaret would inevitably make a more attractive proposal to capture Emma's attention. "Actually, I was thinking of going to the beach next Sunday," Rachel changed the subject. "Emma has never seen the ocean, so I thought it would be a good opportunity." Margaret's eyes lit up. "The beach? That's a wonderful idea. But for Emma's first time at the ocean, wouldn't it be safer to have another experienced adult along? Could I join you?" Rachel hesitated for a moment. Honestly, she wanted to spend time as just their family. However, seeing Margaret's earnest gaze and Emma's expectant expression, she couldn't refuse. "Of course. Let's go together." "Yay. If Grandma comes too, it'll be even more fun." Emma clapped her hands with joy. Margaret hugged Emma while looking.
"Can you imagine making $10,000 a month just from YouTube, all from home? That's exactly what I did with Reddit stories. No face, no voice. Check the link in the description if you're curious."
At Rachel. In that moment, Rachel felt an inexplicable anxiety. Margaret's affection sometimes seemed to cross boundaries, as if Emma belonged to her alone. "Michael loved the ocean too," Margaret said to Emma. "When he was little, we often went to Virginia Beach together. It's one of Daddy's special places." Rachel watched the scene with mixed feelings. Margaret must be carrying the same grief from losing Michael. However, the way she expressed that grief sometimes felt overwhelming. Emma became absorbed in Margaret's stories, asking question after question about adventures at the beach. Rachel returned to the kitchen and washed her coffee cup while thinking. She hoped this beach trip would be the beginning of creating new memories. The morning at Virginia Beach began with a cloudless blue sky. Atlantic waves gently washed the sandy shore, and seabirds danced gracefully. Rachel felt her heart lighten for the first time in a while as she unloaded luggage from the car. "Mom, the ocean is really huge." Emma's eyes sparkled with excitement the moment she stepped onto the sand. She scooped up sand with her small hands, enjoying the sensation of it flowing through her fingers. Wearing her favorite white sundress over a pink swimsuit, she looked as beautiful as a sea fairy. "Emma, dear, shall we look for seashells together with Grandma?" Margaret wore a large straw hat and had carefully applied sunscreen. As always perfectly prepared, she had brought a beach chair and a large cooler. Rachel was always impressed by her thoroughness. The three settled under a beach umbrella and began enjoying their respective activities. Rachel read a novel she had brought for the first time in ages, while Margaret became absorbed in building sand castles with Emma. "Look, Mom. Grandma taught me." Emma proudly showed off the small seashells she had collected in her palm. Beautiful pink and white shells sparkled in the sunlight. "How pretty. They must have been little fishes' homes." Rachel sat down next to her daughter and looked at the shells together. Watching Emma's innocent smile, she couldn't help wishing Michael were there. He would have played with their daughter at the water's edge and taught her about sea creatures in such a fun way. "Rachel, there's an ice cream stand over there." Margaret pointed across the boardwalk. Sure enough, a colorful ice cream cart was visible. "Emma, how about some ice cream?" "Yay! I want chocolate flavor." Emma jumped with joy. Rachel took out her wallet and stood up. "I'll be right back." "Emma, wait here with Grandma." "Okay, Mom." Emma was already absorbed in looking for new shells. Margaret smiled as she watched her granddaughter. Rachel felt reassured and headed toward the ice cream stand on the boardwalk. The ice cream stand was more crowded than expected. Tourist families formed a long line, and Rachel had to wait about 15 minutes. She occasionally looked back at the beach, checking on Emma and Margaret. They still seemed to be searching for shells on the sand. Finally, her turn came, and Rachel ordered 3 ice creams: chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry. Margaret didn't usually eat sweets, but she decided to buy for everyone since it was a special occasion. With the ice cream in hand, Rachel hurried back to the beach. However, only Margaret was sitting under the umbrella. "Where's Emma?" Rachel's voice trembled. Margaret stood up in a panic. "She just went that way to look for shells. She said she'd be right back." Rachel looked around. Emma's small figure was nowhere to be seen. "Emma! Emma!" Rachel ran around the beach shouting. She asked children playing nearby if they had seen Emma, but no one knew anything. "Emma! Where are you?" She continued shouting until her voice became hoarse. Margaret also searched frantically, but Emma was nowhere to be found. "Let's call the police," Margaret said with a trembling voice. Rachel took out her cell phone and dialed 911. "This is an emergency. My 6-year-old daughter is missing. We're at Virginia Beach." The 10 minutes until the patrol car arrived felt like an eternity to Rachel. She ran frantically around the beach, continuing to call Emma's name. "Ma'am, please calm down." Officer Johnson spoke in a gentle tone. "Please tell me the details of the situation." Rachel explained the circumstances with a trembling voice. Emma's height, weight, the clothes she was wearing, the last time she was seen. The officer took notes while listening carefully. "We'll begin the search immediately. I'll also contact Beach Patrol." Instructions flew back and forth over the officer's radio. Rachel was facing an unbelievable reality. In just a moment of looking away, Emma had disappeared. "Rachel, I'm sure she'll be fine." Margaret put her arm around Rachel's shoulders. However, her face was also pale. A full-scale search began. Officers combed every corner of the beach, and lifeguards searched the coastline. Local volunteers joined in, with over 30 people looking for Emma. can your daughter swim?" Officer Johnson asked. Rachel shook her head. "She's only 6. She hasn't learned to swim yet." The officer's expression darkened. The ocean search had become urgent. Even by evening, Emma was not found. Rachel sat collapsed on the sand, stunned. This had to be a nightmare. Surely when she woke up, Emma would be sleeping peacefully beside her. "Ma'am, please go home and rest tonight. We'll conduct a larger-scale search starting tomorrow morning." The officer's words brought home the weight of reality. Rachel shook her head. "I'll stay here. Emma might come back." "Rachel, the officer is right. Let's go home and rest." Margaret gently persuaded her. However, Rachel wouldn't move. Finally, convinced by Margaret and Officer Johnson, Rachel headed home with heavy steps. In the car, Margaret spoke quietly. "It's my fault. I should have watched more carefully." "No, it's because I went to buy ice cream." Rachel blamed herself. She should not have left Emma alone at that time. No, she shouldn't have come to the beach at all. When they arrived home, Rachel rushed to Emma's room. Maybe Emma had somehow come home first. However, the bed was empty, with only her favorite stuffed animal sitting quietly. That night, Rachel couldn't sleep at all. Emma's smile, Emma's voice, Emma's warmth, everything raced through her mind. Would she lose Emma too, after Michael? From the next morning, an even larger search began. The FBI joined in, and Emma's photo was broadcast on television. Rachel clung to hope and continued going to the beach every day. However, even after a week passed, even after a month passed, Emma was not found. As if she had vanished into the ocean, she had completely disappeared. Rachel's world was once again shrouded in darkness. 10 years had greatly changed Rachel's life. She was living a new life in a small seaside town in North Carolina. Her husband David Kennedy was a gentleman who taught history at the local high school, and she had married him just 2 years ago. "Are you coming here again today?" David parked the car while looking at his wife with concern. This beach, 30 minutes by car from their home in Ocean View, was a place Rachel visited regularly. Michael loved this place. "Today is the anniversary of his death." Rachel answered quietly. David said nothing and gently squeezed her hand. He understood his wife's past and was always there to help heal the deep wound of losing Emma. "I'd like to be alone for a while. Could you pick me up in 2 hours?" "Of course. But if anything happens, call me right away," David said worriedly. He knew that when Rachel came to this beach, she always carried special emotions. Rachel began walking the beach alone. The wind caressed her cheek, and the scent of the tide awakened memories. 10 years since Emma disappeared. Not a single day had passed without thinking of her daughter. Emma's room remained exactly as it was. The toys from when she was 6, picture books, small clothes. Rachel sometimes waited in that room for her daughter to return. David never said anything and respected her feelings. "I wonder where that child is and what she's doing now." Rachel sat at the water's edge and hugged her knees. If Emma were alive, she would be 16 this year. What kind of young woman had she grown into? Did she still love collecting shells like she did then? "Mom!" Suddenly, she heard a familiar voice from behind. Rachel's heart jumped violently. When she turned around, there stood a beautiful girl who had grown taller than 10 years ago. Her golden hair now reached her shoulders, and those blue eyes still sparkled unchanged. "Emma?" Rachel's voice trembled. Was this a dream? Or was it a hallucination brought on by years of grief? "Mom, is it really you?" The girl approached step by step. It was definitely Emma. The daughter she had searched for 10 years was standing before her. "Emma." Rachel stood up and tried to embrace her daughter. However, Emma stepped back. At that moment, a familiar figure appeared behind Emma. "Hello, Rachel." It was Margaret Harrison. She was dressed elegantly as always, holding Emma's hand. "Margaret? Why are you?" "Emma, you've been with this person all this time." Rachel was confused. She couldn't understand the situation. "Grandma has been protecting me," Emma said proudly. However, her expression no longer held the innocence of 10 years ago. Instead, there was an adult-like coldness. "Protecting? Emma, where have you been? Everyone was looking for you." Rachel tried to run to her daughter, but Emma stepped back again. "Mom made a new family, didn't she? Grandma told me. After Daddy died, you quickly married another man." Emma's words froze Rachel. "That's not true. I kept searching for you. Every day, every day." "That's a lie," Emma said coldly. "Grandma showed me the wedding photo in the newspaper." Mom was smiling happily. Margaret spoke up. "Rachel, you began dating another man immediately after my son's death. I judged that Emma would be better off living with a loving grandmother than in such an environment." "What are you saying? You took Emma." The puzzle pieces began fitting together in Rachel's mind. That day, Margaret was with Emma. While she went to buy ice cream, Margaret said in a resolute tone, "I saved Emma from you, an unfit mother. Emma, I married my current husband 2 years ago. 8 years after I lost you. I was searching for you constantly, constantly." Rachel desperately tried to explain, but Emma's expression didn't change. "Grandma gave me the best education. She sent me to prestigious private schools and taught me piano, ballet, and French. Things you couldn't have done." Emma's words deeply wounded Rachel's heart. "Emma, I love you. Not a single day has passed that I haven't thought of you. I kept your room exactly the same." "That's a lie," Emma shook her head. "If you really loved me, you wouldn't have started a new life with a new husband." Margaret placed her hand on Emma's shoulder. "Emma, dear, it's time to go home. You're set to enter a Swiss boarding school this year." "Switzerland?" Rachel was stunned. "Emma, please, listen to me. Know the truth." However, Emma had already turned her back. "Emma, wait." Rachel tried to chase her daughter, but Margaret stood in her way. "Rachel, that's enough. Emma is living happily with me. Don't interfere. I'll call the police. You're a kidnapper. Go ahead. But Emma will choose me. For these 10 years, I alone have loved and raised her." Rachel was speechless at Margaret's confident expression. Emma walked toward the parking lot with Margaret without looking back. Rachel collapsed to her knees on the sand. The daughter she had searched for 10 years was right in front of her, yet that daughter rejected her. The false memories and hatred planted by Margaret had created a deep chasm between mother and daughter. "Rachel? What's wrong?" David's voice came from the distance. He had come to pick her up earlier than promised. "David, it was Emma. Emma was here." Rachel explained everything through tears. David supported his wife with an incredulous expression. "Let's contact the police immediately." "But Emma hates me. Margaret spent 10 years instilling hatred for me in her." Rachel's tears wouldn't stop. Her heart was torn between wanting to get her daughter back and the reality of being rejected by her. In the distance, a car engine started. The car carrying Margaret and Emma disappeared into the twilight. Rachel watched her daughter's retreating figure, feeling crushed by helplessness. Rachel and David were at the police station until late that night. Officer Johnson had become the chief and remembered the case from 10 years ago. Witness testimony is certainly important, but unless Emma herself wishes it, it would be difficult to forcibly bring her back. The chief's words filled Rachel with despair. Legally, it appeared that Emma was living with Margaret of her own free will. But she was kidnapped when she was 6. She's been brainwashed. That would be difficult to prove. Mrs. Harrison appears to have properly cared for and educated Emma over the past 10 years. The next morning, Rachel hired private investigator Sarah Mitchell. Let's investigate Margaret Harrison. We'll uncover everything about her movements over the past 10 years, addresses, living situations with Emma, everything. Sarah's investigation was swift. 3 days later, she visited Rachel's home and placed a thick file on the desk. Surprising facts have come to light. After your son's death, Margaret Harrison sold her Virginia home and purchased a large mansion in the mountains of upstate New York with cash. She had minimal contact with neighbors, and Emma appears to have lived a completely isolated life. The file contained Margaret's banking records, real estate purchase records, and even Emma's forged birth certificate. Emma was registered as Emma Harrison and set up as Margaret's adopted daughter. She attended prestigious private schools under this false identity. Rachel was horrified. For 10 years, Margaret had systematically manipulated Emma's life. And this is the most important evidence. Sarah produced a photograph. It showed Emma at age 14 using a computer at the library. According to witnesses, Emma regularly used the internet at the library to search for her real name. In other words, she was trying to learn the truth. With this evidence, Rachel visited the police station again. This time, State Police Child Protective Services also attended. Based on this evidence, we're requesting an arrest warrant for Margaret Harrison on charges of child kidnapping and identity fraud. Simultaneously, Sarah had identified Margaret and Emma's residence. They were living in seclusion at a remote mansion in northern New York State. 3 days later, early in the morning, police and social workers visited the mansion. Rachel was allowed to accompany them. Passing through heavy iron gates, a large stone mansion appeared. Like a castle, the building was a fortress completely cut off from the outside world. An officer's voice rang out, and after a while, Margaret opened the door. Her face showed an expression of resignation. I knew this day would come eventually. Emma came down from upstairs. When she saw her mother, a complex expression crossed her face. Emma, please come with us. A female social worker spoke gently. No. I want to stay with Grandma. Emma resisted violently, but among the items seized from her room was something surprising. What is this? The social worker held a hidden box containing a large number of photos of Rachel and Emma, along with newspaper clippings. It was evidence that Emma had been searching for her mother. Emma, you were looking for your mother. When Rachel said this quietly, tears welled up in Emma's eyes. I. Margaret interrupted. Rachel, you began dating another man immediately after my son's death. Emma needed a loving grandmother. That's not true. This time David stepped forward. She continued searching for Emma alone. She met me 8 years after losing Emma. She cried every day. She called Emma's name every night. Margaret's face paled. That's a lie. I saw the wedding photo in the newspaper. Right after Emma disappeared. That was a different person's article. Sarah showed the evidence documents. You intentionally saved the wrong article and showed it to Emma. Rachel's actual marriage was 2 years ago. It was also published in the newspapers. Emma was confused. Had everything she had believed for 10 years been a lie? Grandma, tell me the truth. Emma's voice trembled. After a long silence, Margaret collapsed into a chair. When Michael died, my world ended too. He was my only son. He was everything to me. Tears streamed down her cheeks. When I saw you quickly recover and begin walking a new path in life, I couldn't forgive it. I wanted to keep Emma by my side, along with Michael's memory. But Emma is my daughter. Rachel's voice was quiet but strong. I understand your grief. But that doesn't justify kidnapping. Margaret was handcuffed. At that moment, Emma ran over. Grandma, you really did love me, didn't you? Yes, Emma, dear. My love for you was never a lie. But my methods were wrong. Margaret hugged Emma one last time. Take care of your mother. Your real mother. After the patrol car left, only Rachel, David, Emma, and the social worker remained at the mansion. Emma, let's go home together. Rachel extended her hand. Emma hesitated for a long time but slowly took her mother's hand. Mom, I'm sorry. I believed. It's all right. Everything's okay. Mother and daughter embraced for the first time in 10 years. However, Rachel knew that true healing would still take a long time. 10 years of lies and brainwashing don't disappear easily. But they could make a new start from today. That was enough. Emma's hands were cold and trembling, but she was definitely holding her mother's hand back. The lost 10 years wouldn't return, but they could walk through the remaining life together. Rachel believed this and continued holding her daughter. 1 year later in spring, Rachel and Emma visited the beach again. This time with hope in their hearts, not fear. Mom, do you remember that time? Emma had grown into a beautiful young woman. However, the occasionally anxious expression she showed revealed the depth of wounds that had not yet healed. Yes. But now it has a different, special meaning. Rachel held her daughter's hand. This past year had not been a smooth journey. Emma frequently suffered nightmares and was tormented by complex feelings toward Margaret. She wavered between love for the grandmother who had cared for her and anger at being deceived. The counselor said that forgiving and forgetting are different things. Emma sat at the water's edge and scooped up sand. It was the same gesture as before, but now she looked much more mature. I don't want to hate Grandma. But I also can't accept that those 10 years were a lie. Rachel sat beside her daughter. It's okay to take time. At your own pace. Following psychiatric evaluation, Margaret was diagnosed with severe depression and trauma from her son's death. She was currently receiving treatment at a specialized facility, drawing strength from Emma's letters. Emma sent a short letter once a month, not forgiveness, but gratitude for the 10 years. About David. Dad. Emma said shyly. She had only recently begun calling her stepfather that. He was trying to propose yesterday, wasn't he? Rachel was surprised. You noticed? I could see the ring box in his pocket. Emma laughed. That smile reminded her of the innocence she had at 6 years old. I'm happy that we can become a real family. Over this year, Emma had also built a relationship with David. He never tried to replace Michael and approached Emma at her own pace. Like the history teacher he was, he helped with Emma's studies and even learned about archaeology with her when she became interested in it. You know, Mom. Emma became serious. I want to study psychology in college. I want to work helping children like me. Tears welled up in Rachel's eyes. She was proud that her daughter was trying to turn her experience into strength. That's a wonderful idea. I'm sure you'll be able to help many people. And about my name. Emma continued with a slightly nervous look. I want to be Emma Kennedy. I want to take David Dad's surname. As a new start. Rachel hugged her daughter. The daughter who had lived as Emma Harrison for 10 years by Margaret's doing now wanted to become part of a new family by her own choice. David will cry with joy when he hears this. Sunset was approaching, and orange light colored the ocean surface. The three were planning to have dinner at a restaurant. Their first formal meal as a new family. Mom, are you happy? Emma asked suddenly. Very happy. Because you're here with me. Me too. For a long time, I didn't know what real happiness was. But now I understand. Emma stood up and extended her hand to Rachel. Family isn't just about blood ties. It's about hearts that care for each other. Rachel took her daughter's hand, and the two began walking along the beach. In the distance, they could see David waving. The lost 10 years wouldn't return. However, they could cherish the remaining time. Margaret had also raised Emma with her own kind of love. There was no need to deny that fact. What mattered was how to live from now on. Surrounded by the sound of waves, the three took their first steps as a new family. They had learned that true family is not bound by blood relations, but by hearts that care for each other. And hope once again dwelled in Emma's eyes.